Hey, Composing Gloves here. I'm wearing a hat, and today we're going to be going over big room melodic sound design. There are 3 major branches of sound design for melodic content, and it's important that you have some cool sounds to compose with. Otherwise, writing songs is just not that fun to do. So the 3 main branches are a detune lead, which we have an example of right here. And yep, it is going in there. The next example I have is a bass lead. So we have the bass sounds, think like electro house. You have those and those sounds are usually really crazy sounding things. So here we've got a cool bass sound. And if I play up higher notes, I've made it in such a way that I've detuned the harmonics down 4 octaves. I'm going to be using a harmor for a lot of these. I want to show you a couple more sounds before I talk about exactly what I'm going to be doing. So you have some options because I added some resonance to this one, but you have your bass sounds and then you also have your pluck sounds. Now pluck sounds are huge. They're in tons and tons of big room songs. Like they're everywhere. And so this is just a basic one. It's got on the metallic side of things. Anyways, you can imagine this has been used in all sorts of drops. So not this particular sound, but pluck sounds. And you have a huge variety of control with a pluck sound like this. Like if I move this around. You could also choose to change, the ratios and do all sorts of things. So that wasn't very dramatic a change. Another very common thing to do with your pluck sound is to layer in some sort of a percussive hit so that every time it hits, it's got that bell quality. And another common thing with pluck sounds is they will use square waves and layer square waves in on them. So they'll take something like a square wave and they'll come in here and they will, if we go over to I was already on it, and they gauge the volume. I know I'm moving a little fast, but I'm just trying to show you. They'll layer in something like that, right? And they'll do things with compressors afterwards to bring out the attack and do some cool things. So we're going to look at how to make some of these. How much sound design do you need to know? Well, this is just going to be some brief looks. We're going to make sounds from scratch, so you'll see the steps. But I'm not going to be explaining every single knob and button turn and stuff. And I may do things instinctively to try and correct things that I don't like in the sound. But I expect you to have gone through Sound and Synth Basics. If you want to know more in detail about how to make the sounds and working with a synthesizer to get the sounds, I have tutorials. I have an entire series for Harmor from the ground up, Citrus from the ground up, FM8 from the ground up, and Massive from the ground up. I think there are others as well. Yeah, I have the three oscillator one, if you're interested in 3 oscillator. Layers is another big thing in Big Room that we are going to be covering in, that in future videos when we get into composition, because it makes a lot more sense to cover how a layer works and bring it in dynamically in a composition than it does here. So you'll see that more when we get into some composing and stuff. But for now, we're going to be looking into that because layers, all it is you make various, like let's say this is our thing. We're like, oh, okay, we got this cool thing, but we're missing some low end. Well, you make a separate synth for the low end. That way you can control them individually. Another thing you might want to consider when you're doing stuff is when you're doing effects. If you're going to be doing effects that are like reverb or stuff, anything that you can send as a parallel chain, it's kind of cool to use that parallel chain because then if you want, you can sidechain the kick to that and cause an interesting change with using side chaining. So let's go ahead and make some sounds now. Okay, so first let's open up the Harmor. Okay, here's Harmor. This is my synth of choice most of the time too, by the way. So I have lots of other synths, but this one, this thing's a beast. So we're going to go ahead, and now the first thing we're going to do is the detune lead. That's like, detune leads are like everywhere. So we're going to go ahead and turn the unison up to 7. I prefer unison. If you have something that has a unison thing, I suggest you use that. I know most people use Nexus or Silent One. I don't own either of those, so I'm going to be showing you how to make the sounds using other things. So anyways, off the bat, you open it up and get that. Now that's a valuable layer because if you have a lot of stuff going on in some other layers, that can add some real homeward focus towards the actual note, especially if you have things that are buzzing around the note. It just lets the listener figure out what note you're actually playing a lot easier. So this is a really valuable layer sound, and you'll see I'll probably end up using it at some point. But here is the unison, so we're going to turn it up to 7. I'm going to leave it on default right now. So that's pretty cool to get a little more of that buzzy lead that we get in Big Room. I'm going to go ahead and just turn that up. we're pretty much done. All we got to do now is turn on the reverb. Now, this is something I would go to a send effect because it'd be cool to sidechain the reverb and leave the sound itself alone. Sometimes it doesn't work out so great. So, okay, cool. So that's a detuned lead sound. Really, really, really simple. Very cool. So, all right. And the square waves, now this is all saw waves, by the way, is what we're starting with. If I start with a square wave, that's kind of cool, but you just don't hear that sound very much in big room. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to make a bass sound. Now, I have things in the sound design with Harmer that talk about this bass sound specifically, but what we're going to do is we're just going to make one from scratch right now. So let's go ahead. And so I'm going to go, and what I want my bass sound to do is I want it to have harmonics that create sort of a resonancy mid-range, because that's something that's pretty common in some big room leads. So I'm going to go ahead and detune it down. So what I'm taking is I'm taking the harmonics above the fundamental down. So if we were to look at this as it is regular, now all my harmonics are up there. Well, let's pitch them down 4 octaves. And you get that sort of a nasally quality. That's really cool. I really like that. Cool. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come into our effects. We're going to turn on the log distortion. Oh, well, maybe not the log. Let's go to ribbon. And I just know what these sound like. I've messed with them so much. I would grab trash 2, but I want to be a little more friendly in this one. Later on, I might just grab whatever I think I need. But for now, I'm going to just go ahead and stick to inside of FL stuff. So, okay, that's pretty cool. Now, another cool trick you can do is you can manipulate the volume of that fundamental, and you can really begin to do things. So I just went to the timbre window, even though it looks like it's spelled timbre, it's timbre, and I'm going to manipulate. This is controlling the volume of the first one. You can see it has a dramatic effect because this is the loudest tone in a saw wave series. So this is stuff covered in Sound Synth Basics. So you see, that's pretty cool. I dig that. Now, what we're going to do next is you could add reverb as a bass sound. That might be a little weird, but you could totally do it, and you could try doing unison. A lot of people like to get fancy with their delays. Now, that maybe you don't want that clicking between notes. That's notes overlapping, and they don't stack up that nice. Something that's kind of cool, though, is perfect fifths usually sound pretty dope. That and octaves. That's just the way the harmonic series lineup's really nice. So what we're going to do is to avoid this clicky noise, because we're probably going to be doing stuff if you don't want that. More of an this is very electro vibe-ish, but you'll see stuff like this in big room tracks as well. I'm going to turn on legato, and you can change the time setting to adjust the slide time. So that's pretty cool. Maybe I want a longer slide time, but that's a little long. So I'm going to go ahead and do something shorter. So anyways, that's pretty cool. We got a pretty cool lead sound. You can do some interesting things. Another cool thing you can do is change now you have, this is the resonance, and that controls, so when you do a filter movement, you can get some really interesting resonancy movements, sort of like a talking thing, but it's not quite a talking thing because you're going to be playing like a line with it. So it's a nice place between dubstep bass and electro bass. And you'll definitely see like dubstep wobbles and stuff occasionally as fillers in big room. It's something that some people do. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to use the wide bump and turn it up here. Now, I don't notice any immediate change, but as I move the filter up and down. Now I'm going to turn the width up a bit and turn the resonance down a bit. So that's pretty cool. You might want more aggressive resonance. So that's pretty cool. So that's our bass sounds. Those are some ideas for your bass sounds. And I'm staying out of post right now. I don't always do that. Sometimes you really need to go into post. Now, the last one I'm going to use is the pluck sound, right? These things are like everywhere. To make a pluck sound, I'm going to go ahead and use a citrus, and I'm going to name it the pluck sound. And what we're going to do is we are simply going to just make a simple pluck sound. Now, I find it useful with these sounds in particular to have some sort of a reference. And so you can go look up a track. In my project files, I have a lot of cool pluck sounds by Vengeance. I believe they're in the electro kit. See, there's a good one. Okay, so let's say that we want to make it sound like that, right? So I have loaded up some sounds that have and lend their percussive quality to us. And these are in the mode audio these are literally the packs. So if you go in there and go into mode audio, and then in the percussion, rims, hi-hat, and one of these, there are these guys. Some are in there. If we open this up, we can look. Patches, drums, and audio, percussion. I'm just not seeing the folder. There it is. So come in here, you look for some, and what we can do is we can write a melody with these things. And so we can, maybe we want to be like really snappy. So anyways, you get the idea. You got some cool pluck sound capabilities, and you simply, all you do is you grab some additional things that have already got a pluck quality to them, and then you can layer in some synthesis and get some really cool things. So that's just some general sound design for this as we get going into this thing. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe and have a blessed day.